Terrorist financing is another major issue banks in part need to tackle, as often inadvertently they can be involved. David, in reality, how complicit is the banking industry in terrorist financing? For example, how much of ISIS's money is being processed via the international banking system?
Well, I would say the banks are not complicit because obviously if they were to detect any movements related to terrorist financing, they'd be very quick to block and report. The problem is that in this terrorist financing, they're not moving large sums of money. Typically, they're small amounts that come into accounts, sometimes through charitable organizations that are being used, where the people that are actually donating this money are well-intentioned. And it's difficult to pierce some of these non-transparent structures which are being used.
But can this type of terrorist financing really be restricted by traditional money laundering laws?
Well, I think it's obviously much more difficult than your traditional money laundering. And this is something where I think, law enforcement needs to be much more involved. Not that they're not involved already, but I think this is something where they're able to detect this at its origin. And we need a little bit more cooperation between law enforcement and the banking industry to try and stem the tide of this terrorist financing. As I said, we're not talking about large sums of money that are moving through the system all at one time. So if law enforcement is able to alert the banks in some way, shape, or form of these movements, it would go a long way to combating the terrorist financing.
So finally, how are banks tackling their involvement in this moving forwards, even if we're talking about just small sums of money?
Well, the banks have obviously tried to adjust the profiles in their monitoring systems, the alerts that come through their monitoring systems to try and detect. But also the problem is, and I'll use the case in San Bernardino, California as an example. These people were not on any watch list. They were not, they were normal citizens weaved into the normal fabric of life, and therefore there was nothing really to detect. So you can see that it makes it much more difficult. It's becoming more and more complex.
Thanks for watching. For more videos from the Voice of the Market, please subscribe.